Welcome to the Shorten anime channel. Today we'll dive into the latest episode of Battle Through the Heavens. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to support the channel. Battle Through the Heavens, Season 1, Episode 2. In the main hall, Zhao Zhan and the three clan elders were talking excitedly with the strange elder. The guest seemed to have something weighing on his mind, yet every time when it seemed as if he was about to broach the subject, he would swallow back the words and change the topic. Each time he did this, the delicate girl next to him would give the elder a subtle yet firm glance. After listening on to their conversation for a while, Xiaoyan was bored by their conversation, and his head was slowly drooping. Brother Xiaoyan, do you know who they are? Right when Xiaoyan was about to fall asleep from boredom, Shun-er, who was beside him, opened her ancient book and asked Xiaoyan, "Do you know?" Xiaoyan curiously looked at Shun-er. "Did you see the symbol of a silver sword with the clouds on the cuff of their robes?" Shun-er said with a light smile. "Oh?" Xiaoyan looked towards the cuffs of the three, and indeed there he clearly saw the embroidered symbol of a sword sparkling in the clouds. "They are from the faction of Misty Clouds?" Xiaoyan asked in bewilderment. Even though Xiaoyan had never gone out into the real world, he had read from books about this faction. Xiaoyan's clan lived in a city named Wutan City, which was part of the Jiama Empire. Even though this city is listed as being one of the bigger cities within Jiama Empire, it was still dwarfed by the size of the empire, despite having the Magic Monsters mountain range behind it. Within the city itself, Xiaoyan's clan was the biggest. Besides the Xiao clan, there were two other clans that competed with the Xiao clan, but even after 24 years of blood and strife, they were unable to overtake the Xiao clan. If the Xiao clan was the strongest power in Wutan City, then the faction of Misty Clouds would be the strongest power in the entire Jiama Empire. The difference between the Xiao clan and the faction of Misty Clouds was enormous, to the point where Xiaoyan's father, Xiao Zhan, who normally kept a strict and harsh face, was extremely respectful in front of these guests. "Why are they here?" Xiaoyan whispered. Shun-er's slim fingers paused. "Maybe it's related to you, Brother Xiaoyan." "Me? But I don't have any relationship with them." Hearing Shun-er's response, Xiaoyan paused before shaking his head and whispering back, "Do you know the name of the girl up there?" Shun-er glanced at the girl. "No, do you?" Xianyan furrowed his brows as he examined the face of the girl Shun-er pointed out. He cannot recall ever having seen her before. "She's Nalan Yanran." A curious expression floated on Shun-er's face. Xiaoyan stiffened. "Nalan Yanran? The granddaughter of Nalan Ji, the Lionheart commander of Jiama Empire? She's my fiancée that was set between our families before I was born. Hey, grandfather and Nalan Ji were like blood brothers, and at that time, you and Nalan Yanran were born around the same time, so the two decided that you guys would get married. But unfortunately, 3 years after you were born, grandfather died in a fight with a clan enemy, and as time passed, Xiao clan's relation with the Nalan family became weaker." Shun-er paused and looked at Xiaoyan, who was absorbed in Shun-er's story. "Nalan Jie is not only arrogant, he also puts extreme emphasis on promises. The marriage was decided by him, so even though your name has been quite bad the past few years, he has never once thought of annulling the marriage." "That geezer sure is quite obstinate," Xiaoyan smiled. "Nalan Ji has the final say in all matters within the family, so even though he really is very fond of his granddaughter, no one in the family has stepped up to oppose the marriage." Shun-er's beautiful eyes lightly glanced at Xiaoyan before continuing. "But 5 years ago, Nalan Yanran became a student under the faction leader of Misty Clouds. In these 5 years, Nalan Yanran demonstrated incredible talent. When a person has enough power to change the path of their life, they would try their hardest to change things that they don't like, and unfortunately, she absolutely hates her promised marriage with Brother Xiaoyan." "You're saying that she came to cancel the marriage?" Xiaoyan's face darkened. At this moment, he was furious, not because Nalan Yanran did not want him as her husband, but rather because Nalan Yanran is trying to cancel the marriage with the entire clan present. If that happens, then his father would lose much of his dignity and respect within the clan. Xiaoyan slowly breathed in, the cold air calming his raging thoughts. Within his sleeve, Xiaoyan curled his fist, thinking, "If I was a doucher, who would dare to trample over my dignity?" It was true, if Xiaoyan was a doucher, then even if Nalan Yanran had the backing of the faction of Misty Clouds, she would not be able to do such a thing. A 15-year-old doucher There were only a few that had such high accomplishments in the entire history of Dochi mainland. And the few people that were at that level when they were that young are now some of the most influential people in the entire Dochi world. A small, fragile hand cleverly evaded Xiaoyan's sleeves and held onto Xiaoyan's hands. Shuner softly said, "Brother Xiaoyan, if she really cancels the marriage, then that's her own loss. I believe that in a couple of years, she will be regretting her decisions today." "Regret?" Xiaoyan sneered. "With my current abilities, I don't have that kind of luxury." Xiaoyan paused before changing the tone of his voice. "Wait, Shuner, how are you so familiar with them? The things that you've just said, my father might not even know some of them. How do you know all these?" Shuner stiffened, but did not say anything. Looking at Juer's avoidance on the subject, Xiaoyan could only helplessly smile. Even though Shuner was also part of the Xiao family, she and Xiaoyan didn't have any relation by blood. In addition, Xiaoyan had never seen Shuner's parents, and every time he asked his father about them, Xiaozhan would shake his head and not speak. Soon, Shuner's parents became a taboo subject, something that they seemed to fear speaking about. For Xiaoyan, Shuner's identity was always veiled in mystery. No matter how hard or how cleverly he tried, Shuner would always stay silent. "Ugh, whatever. If you don't want to say it, then don't." Shaking his head, Xiaoyan's face suddenly darkened again. The guest elder, under the repeated signals from Nalan Yanran, finally stood up. "Ha! Using the faction of misty clouds to pressure father, this Nalan Yanran certainly is using some shameless tactics." Fury began to build within Xiaoyan's heart. Ahem. The white-robed elder cleared his throat and stood up. Putting his hands together, he smiled. "Clan leader Xiaozhan, the reason we came here for today is because we would like your help for something. Of course, Geya, if you have any problems, just let me know. If I can help you solve it, then I definitely wouldn't dare say no." To the visiting elder, Xiaozhan did not refuse, but since he did not know what the request was, he did not make any promises either. Hey, Leader Xiao, do you know her?" Geya smiled lightly and pointed to the girl next to him. I'm sorry, this girl is..." Xiaozhan looked over the girl and awkwardly shook his head. When Nalan Yanran became Yunjun's student, she was only 8. After studying in the faction of Misty Clouds for 5 years, she had changed quite a lot. Before she was only a child, but now she is a blooming teenager. Her name is Nalan Yanran. Uncle Xiao, I haven't come to pay my respect in a long time. It's my fault that you don't recognize me," Nalan Yanran sweetly said. He, Yanran, I heard that you've become a student under Yunjun. At the time, I thought that it was just a baseless rumor, but now I realize that it's actually true. What incredible talent you must have, Xiaozhan complimented. It was just good luck. Smiling lightly, Nalan Yanran began to feel uncomfortable and lightly tugged Geye's robe with her hand under the table. Hey, Leader Xiao, the request that I have relates to Yanran. In addition, this was assigned by our faction leader. Geya kept his smile, but when he mentioned the faction leader, he subconsciously lessened his smile and his face grew serious. Like Geye, Xiaozhan stopped smiling. The faction leader of the faction of Misty Clouds was one of the most important people in the entire Jiama Empire. Xiaozhan, who was a small clan leader, wouldn't dare to provoke her. But with her power, what would she need Xiao Clan to help with? Geya did say that it was related to Yanran. Is it that? A wandering thought crossed Xiaozhan's mind, causing the edge of his mouth to twitch slightly and his firm hand to start trembling. Thankfully, his hands were covered by his long sleeves. Taking care to push down the thought, Xiaozhan shakily asked, Mr. Geye, please do tell me what is the faction's request. Geye hesitated, but he thought about how much the faction leader adored Yanran, and thus he clenched his teeth. Leader Xiao, you know how strict the rules are in the faction. In addition, faction leader views Yanran very highly. In fact, faction leader is expecting Yanran to be the next faction leader. However, due to a special rule, future faction leaders cannot have a relation with another male before they become the official faction leader. Taking a breath, Geye continued. When our faction leader asked Yanran about it, she realized that Yanran and the Xiao clan had a marriage proposal. Therefore, faction leader asked for leader Xiao to cancel this marriage. Ka! The jade cup in Xiaozhan's hands turned into a fine mist in an instant. In the main hall, everyone was silent. The 3 clan elders were shocked by Geye's words, but soon afterwards, The elders glanced at Xiaozhan with plain glee and ridicule. How will you respond to this? The three elders thought sinisterly. A couple of the younger kids didn't know about the set marriage between Yao Yan and Nalan Yanran. But after asking their parents about it, their faces brightened. Their glances towards Xiao Yan were full of ridicule and distaste. Looking at Xiao Zhan's dark face, Nalan Yanran lowered her head and squeezed her fingers together. Leader Xiao, I know that this request is a little over the top, but because faction leader requested it, please cancel the marriage. Helplessly letting out a breath, Ye lightly whispered to Xiao Zhan. Xiao Zhan's hands curled into fists. A faint green dew chi slowly creeped over his body, and finally, it formed a illusory lion's head in front of Xiao Zhan's face. Xiao Clan's secret chi method, Furious Lion's Rage. Level, Middle Zhuan. Looking at Xiao Zhan's reaction, Geya's face became serious. He moved to place Yanran behind him, and within his eagle claw-like hands, a green dou chi gathered. The dou chi released small but sharp illusory swords. Faction of Misty Cloud's chi method, Green Wood Sword. Level, Lo Xuan. With the release of dou chi, the weaker youngsters within the main hall became pale and felt their chests tighten. When Xiao Zhan's breathing became more intense, the three elders yelled out. Their voices were like lightning that swept through the hall. Xiao Zhan, stop! Don't forget, you're the clan leader of Xiao Clan. Xiao Zhan stiffened, and the dou chi on his body disappeared slowly. Xiao Zhan fell back into his chair and emotionlessly watched the lowered head of Yanran. Finally, he said in a raspy tone, Nalan, you have some guts. With such a daughter, I'm really envious of Nalan Su. Nalan Yanran twitched. Uncle Xiao, no, call me clan leader Xiao from now on. I don't deserve to be called uncle. You're the future faction leader of the faction of Misty Clouds. In the future, you're probably one of the most important people in Duchi mainland. My Xiao Yan only has modest talent. He doesn't deserve you. Thank you, clan leader Xiao. Hearing Xiao Kun's words, Geya's face brightened. Apologizing, he says, Clan leader Xiao, faction leader understands that today's request is quite disrespectful. Therefore, she asked me to bring something. Please accept it as an apology from our faction leader. Geye touched a ring on his hand, and suddenly a completely pan-green jade box appeared in his hand. Carefully opening the box, a fragrance swept through the entire main hall. Anyone who smelled it felt relaxed. The three elders' curiosity got the better of them, and they poked their head to see the contents of the box. Qi gathering powder? Within the jade box, a green pill, about the size of a dragon's eye, laid quietly. The refreshing scent that had spread throughout the entire hall was emanating from the pill. In Dou Qi mainland, to become a Dou Jie, one needs to be able to compress the qi within one's own body to a qi cyclone. But the process of compressing qi to become a qi cyclone has an extremely high failure rate. After failing, one's 9 duan qi would fall back to 8 duan. Some unlucky people need to compress their qi 10 or more times before they are successful in doing so. But by wasting so much time on the compression of qi, one would lose the best time to practice qi and thus destroy their future. Qi gathering power, its use was to allow someone with 9 duan qi to have a 100% success rate when trying to compress one's qi. This effect makes many people red-eyed. After all, anyone that's not a Dao Jie is treated extremely badly. But qi gathering power isn't something made by nature. Rather, it was made by someone. Alchemist. In Dao Qi mainland, the sole profession that's more desirable than a Dao Jie are alchemists. Like the name suggests, alchemists are able to create special pills that raise one's strengths. Every free agent alchemist is sought after by many forces. The reason as to why alchemists have such a high position is because of how rare alchemists are and how strict the requirements to become an alchemist are. First of all, one must be of the fire attribute. And then, within the fire attribute, one must have a tiny sliver of the wood attribute to act as a catalysis in pill refining. In the Doshi mainland, a person's attribute is determined by their soul. A soul since birth will only have one soul attribute and reject any other attribute. So it's impossible for a person to have 2 attributes. Of course, nothing is impossible. Within 1 million people, there will always be someone who has a mutated soul. Within these people that have mutated souls, some have the potential to become alchemists. However, a person that has the fire and wood attributes is not enough to become an alchemist. That's because one must also have a strong soul perception or soul molding. In the refinement of pills, the three most important requirements are the material, the flame, and one's soul perception. The material. They would have to be natural treasures. After all, even the best alchemists can't create a god-tier pill from trash material. Therefore, good base materials are very important for good pills. The flame, or the fire that's required when refining pills. The fire used in refining pills can't be normal flames, but rather, they must be douqi flames, created though douqi with a fire attribute. Of course, there are some extremely strong mutated flames in nature. Some strong alchemists would take these flames and use them to refine pills instead of their own douqi flame. Not only do these mutated flames boost the success rate of the refinement, they also increase the effectiveness of the pills. Because refining pills is a gruesome task, extended periods of refinement requires a lot of douqi, and because of that, every brilliant alchemist is also a strong fire-type doge. The final requirement is soul perception. When refining a pill, the intensity of the flame needs to be controlled with ridiculous precision. If the flame is slightly too hot, the pill within the furnace would be burned to ashes, wasting the time and effort of the alchemist. Therefore, controlling the intensity of the flame is a prerequisite to becoming an alchemist. But in order to have a control over the flames, one must have an incredible soul perception. Without soul perception, even if one meets or even exceeds the first two requirements, it would be pointless to try to refine pills. Under these strict conditions, the ones who have the qualifications to become an alchemist are few and rare. Because there aren't that many alchemists, the magical pills that they refine are also few and sparse. Since rare things are valuable and pills can definitely be defined as rare, alchemists all have an honorable, to an exaggerated extent, position. Within the main hall with the gas of the three elders, the younger generation all stare at the jade box in Gaya's hands. Next to her father, Xiaomei licks her red lips with her soft tongue and stares at the box, without blinking. Hey, this was refined by our honorable elder Gu He. I think that everyone here has heard of his name, right? Looking at the embarrassing appearance of the three elders, Gaye started becoming arrogant. This pill was refined by the pill king Gu He? Hearing Gaye's words, the three elders once again embarrassed themselves. Pill King Gu He, an extremely influential alchemist within the Jiama Empire. His alchemy is mysterious and unpredictable, causing countless different forces to try to fawn upon him. Not only does Gu He have extraordinary talent in alchemy, his own strength is at the level of a Du Wang, and he's one of the top 10 Daojies in Jiama Empire. Refined by his hands, the Qi gathering powder's value is probably exponentially higher than other normal Qi gathering power. The three elders smile at the Qi gathering powder within the jade box. If the Xiao clan gets this Qi gathering powder, then the Xiao clan can probably develop another young dojo. Right when the three elders were thinking about how to get the pill for their own grandsons, a young voice filled with fury resonates within the main hall. Mr. Guiye, it would be better if you kept the pill. Your request, we might not accept it. The main hall fell silent, and everyone's gaze turns upon the delicate face of Xiaoyan in the corner. Xiaoyan, you don't have the right to say anything right now. Be quiet. One of the elders' face became dark as he yells at Xiaoyan. Xiaoyao, be quiet. I know that you're not happy about this, but we'll decide what will happen. Another quite old elder said to Xiaoyan, three elders, if your sons or grandsons had their marriage released today, would you still be saying that? Xiaoyao slowly stands up. The edge of his mouth was curved upwards in ridicule. Since it was apparent that the three elders treated him with disdain, why should he be so respectful to them? You? Hearing Xiaoyan's words, the three elders couldn't find a way to argue against his words. The grumpy third elder even started materializing his duchi in anger. Three elders, Xiaoyao Gege isn't wrong. He's the victim of this, so you guys shouldn't decide for him. A clear girl's voice rang across the main hall. Hearing the girl's voice, the three elders' arrogance fell, and after exchanging worried glances, they all nodded and sat back down. Looking at the three elders backing off, Xiao Yao turns his head back and deeply gazes at the smiling Xiao Shuner. Who are you? To be able to make the three elder fear you? Pressing down his confusion, Xiao Yao quickly walks up and respectfully bows to his father, Xiao Zhan. Afterwards, he turns around to face Nalan Yanren. Slowly letting a breath of air, he asks, Lady Nalan, I would like to ask a question. Your visit here today to release the marriage, did grandfather Nalan give his consent? Before, when Xiao Yan came out from his corner, Nalan Yanran already felt uncomfortable with him. Now hearing his question, her brow scrunches up. This guy, at first I thought he was pretty nice, but he's actually extremely shameless. Does he not know the difference between the two of us? Criticizing Xiaoyan in her mind, Nalan Yanran never considered how releasing the marriage would put Xiaoyan and his father into an awkward and infuriating situation. Standing up and staring at the should-be husband of hers, Nalan Yanran says, "Grandfather didn't give his consent, but this is my own problem and not related to him. Since grandfather hasn't said anything, then I hope that you will forgive my father for not accepting your request. Our marriage was set by our two grandfathers, and since none of them have said to release the marriage, then this marriage will go on. Or else the people that are trying to release the marriage would be disrespecting their ancestors. I think that within our clan there aren't any people that would do such a dishonorable thing." Xiaoyan tilts his head and stares straight at the three elders. Using the dishonorable title, Xiaoyan forced the elders to be silent. In the strict clan, doing something as blasphemous as disrespecting one's ancestors would be enough for them to lose their spot as an elder of the clan. "You..." After being rebuffed by Xiaoyan, Nalan Yanran couldn't find any argument to retort Xiaoyan's claim. Her face became ashen and heavily stomping her feet. Her princessy nature became apparent. Looking at the young man with disgust, she annoyingly says, "Under what conditions will you release the marriage? Were the reparations too little? All right, I can ask my teacher to give you another 3 key gathering powder. In addition, if you want to, I can let you join Faction of Misty Clouds and learn profound Du Qi training methods. Is that enough?" Hearing the attractive conditions from Nalan Yanran, the three elders' breathing started to become heavy. Within the main hall, the younger generation swallowed the saliva. Joining Faction of Misty Clouds? God, that's the dream of countless people. After saying all these conditions, Nalan Yanran raised her snow-white chin, like a princess addressing her servants. She waited for Xiaoyan's response and knew that these conditions were enough to make any young man crazy. Unlike what Nalan Yanran expected, after saying the alluring condition, the young man in front of her started trembling. He slowly raised his head, and his delicate and young face was contorted into a fearsome, savage face. Even though Xiaoyan had endured countless taunts over the past 3 years, even he had a limit. Nalan Yanran's actions had roughly stepped on the final shred of dignity hidden deep within Xiaoyan's heart. "Ah!" Seeing the vicious face of the young man, Yanran sprang backwards. The young man by her sides took the chance to pull out his sword and coldly stared at Xiaoyan. I want to kill you!" Even though his teeth were clattering, Xiaoyan's words had an unmistakable killing intent to them. His hands were curled into fists, and within his black pupils, furious flames burned. "Yan, you're being rude." At the top of the hall, Xiaozhan was shocked by the reaction of Xiaoyan and hurriedly quieted Xiaoyan. The current Xiao clan wouldn't dare be on the wrong side of Faction of Misty Clouds. Even though his fist tightened even further, Xiaoyan lowered his head. Moments later, he lightly lifts up his head. The difference was that the vicious face that he had displayed earlier had been completely replaced by a calm and impassive face. In the past 3 years, Xiaoyan had endured countless discrimination and taunts. As a result, Xiaoyan was now more mature than before. Perhaps his greatest gain from the past 3 years was that he had learned to keep his emotions under control. Looking at the completely different young man, Geye and Nalan Yanran suddenly felt a chill. This kid, if he stays useless, then it isn't a big deal. But if he gains strength, then he will definitely become a dangerous force to be reckoned with, Geye solemnly thought. "Xiaoyan, even though I don't know why my actions have infuriated you thus far, but you should still release the marriage." Slowly letting out a breath, Nalan Yanran pushed her fear and stiffened her face. "Remember, my visit to Xiao Clan was permitted by my teacher, the faction leader of Faction of Misty Clouds." Pursing her lips, Nalan Yanran said, with a slight hint of helplessness, "You can understand that my visit today is partly coercion, but you should understand that the reality is harsh and nothing is fair. Even though it shouldn't mean much, you should understand the difference between us. We don't have any hope of being together." Hearing the absolute statements of the girl, Xiaoyan's mouth curved into a sneer. "Lady Nalan, you should understand, in Du Qi mainland, a woman going back on her marriage would be embarrassed the opposite party in front of everyone. Hey, I don't really care about being embarrassed, but my father, he's the clan leader. If we accept your request today, then how do you expect him to rule over Shao Clan? How will Shao Clan keep a foothold in Wutan City? Looking at the furious young man, Nalan Yanran's brows furrowed. She peeked at Xiaojan at the end of the hall. He appeared as if he had just aged by a lot. Seeing that, she felt slightly sorry for her actions and bit her lips. After musing for a moment, her eyes lit up. She whispers, "Today's request, it's a little reckless on my part. So today I will temporarily take back my request to release my marriage. But you must promise me something." "What promise?" "I can delay today's request for 3 years. 3 years from now, you will come to Faction of Misty Clouds and challenge me. If I win, then I will release the marriage in front of everyone. And at that time, you would have performed your clan's rites of adulthood. So even if you lose, you won't be affecting your father Xiaojan or Shao Clan. Do you accept?" "Hey, when I lose then, it won't affect the name of my father. But maybe for my entire life, I'll bear the shame of losing. This woman is too cruel." Xiaoyan felt helpless. He was angry, but he couldn't find a source to vent it. "Lady Nalan, it's not like you don't know the condition of Yan Er. How do you expect him to challenge you, insulting him like this? Is it fun for you?" Xiaojan smacked the table and angrily stood up. "Xiaojan Shu, when releasing a marriage, there must someone who bears the responsibilities of it. If not for you, I would be releasing the marriage today. Afterwards, I will announce it to the public." After being blocked several times, Nalan Yanran was also getting angry and coldly shouted at Xiaoyan, "Since you don't want to hurt the name of Xiaojan Shushu, then accept the challenge. 3 years or now, will you choose the former or the later? Nalan Yanran, you don't need to act all high and mighty. The reason behind you releasing this marriage is because you don't think that I, Xiaoyan, a near cripple, match you, a genius. Forgive me for putting things plainly. Besides your beauty, I don't care about anything else of yours. The faction of Misty Clouds is very strong, I'll admit that. But I am young. I have lots of time. When I was 12, I was a doja. But you, Nalan Yanran, when you were 12, how many Duan Chi did you have? You're right, I might be crippled right now. But since I created miracles 3 years ago, why do you think that I can't repeat such miracles in the future? Why do you think that I can't become the genius that I once was?" Facing the aggressive stance, Zhao Yan finally erupted like a volcano. His face became completely serious, and his words shocked everyone in the main hall. Who would have thought that the quiet young man possessed such a sharp tongue? Nalan's mouth twitched. Even though she was extremely pissed at Xiaoyan, she couldn't find words to argue against his statements. Xiaoyan's words were truth. Even though he was crippled now, he was a doje back when he was 12 years old. But Nalan Yanran was only 8 Duan Shi at that time. "Lady Nalan, because of Grandfather Nalan, I'll give you some advice. 30 years east, 30 years west. Don't you dare bully me because I'm poor now." Xiaoyan's tough words made Nalan stiffen. "Yes, what a great saying. Don't you dare bully me because I'm poor now. My son can't possibly be ordinary." At the end of the hall, Xiaojan's eyes were lit with vigor, and his heavy palms slammed against the table, causing tea to splatter everywhere. Clenching her teeth and staring at the sneering young man in front of her, Nalan became so angry that her head began to feel dizzy. Nalan Yanran had been spoiled since birth and had never been humiliated by someone the same age as her. Her childish voice climbed another pitch. "What is your basis for humiliating me? Even if your talent before was unsurpassed by anyone, the you now, you're a cripple now. Okay, I, Nalan Yanran, will wait for the day that you surpass me. Today's release, I won't mention it anymore. But 3 years from now, I will wait for you at Faction of Misty Clouds. If you have the guts, then show me how you've changed your situation. If you defeat me then I, Nalan Yanran, will be your slave for the rest of my life. Of course, if you're still crippled 3 years later, then you better prepare the contract to release our marriage." Looking at the ashen face of the girl, Zhao Yan ridicules. "It won't take 3 years. I wouldn't want you even if you were begging me to become my wife." After saying that, Zhao Yan ignored the frozen face of Yan Ran and turned around. Quickly walking forward to a table, he took out a paper and started to write. The ink slowly dropped onto the paper, and finally his pen stopped moving. Suddenly, Xiaoyan's right hand reached for a short sword on the desk and pointed the sharp blade at his left hand. As soon as readied the sword, he firmly drew blood from his left hand. His bloodied hand pressed down on the white paper, leaving a glaring red mark. Lightly picking up the contract, Zhao Yan laughed, a laugh of victory. When he walked past Yanren, he smashed the contract on the table. Don't you dare think that I, Xiao Yan, think highly of some genius wife. This contract isn't a contract to release the marriage, but rather I am divorcing you from the Yao clan. From now on, you, Nalan Yanren, have no relations with the Yao clan. You dare divorce me? Looking at the bloody contract on the table, Nalan Yanren's eyes opened wide in disbelief. With her beauty, talent, and background, to have been divorced by a small clan's cripple? This sudden turn of events made her think that she was in a dream. Coldly looking at Nalan Yanren's dumbfounded expression, Xiao Yan turned around and kneels in front of Xiaozhan. He gave a heavy kowtow, biting his lips, and didn't say anything. Even though Xiao Yan actually divorced Nalan Yanran, when the events spread out, others might not think that it's the truth. They, who don't know what happened, would think that Nalan Yanran used her tyrannical background for force Xiao clan to release the marriage. After all, with Yanran's beauty, talent, and background, a cripple from Xiao clan would never be able to match her. No one would think that Xiao Yan had the boldness to divorce a future faction leader of the faction of Misty Clouds. Because of that, being Xiao Yan's father, Xiaozhan would probably have to endure endless ridicule. Looking at the kneeling Xiao Yan and understanding the guilty feelings that his son was having, Xiaozhan helplessly smiled. I believe that my son won't stay crippled forever. Gossip won't stand a chance when the hard facts come out in the future. Father, 3 years from now, I will go to faction of Misty Clouds and redeem today's shame. With slightly wet eyes, Xiao Yan did another heavy kowtow and stood up. Without hesitating, Xiao Yan walked towards the door of the main hall. When he passed Nalan Yanran, Xiao Yan pauses of a moment and spits out cold words from his young mouth. 3 years from now, I will find you. The shadow of the young man, under the shining sun, extended extremely far. Looking at it, it seemed very lonely. Nalan Yanran's small mouth opened, but no sound came out. She stared at the disappearing back of Xiao Ya, and the contract in her hand felt as heavy as a mountain. Ahem, since your goal has been accomplished, please leave now. Looking at the receding young man, even though Xiaozhan's face was impassive, the hands inside of his sleeve curled into fists so tight that the fingers became a pale white. Xiao Shushu, I apologize for today's event. If you have time in the future, make sure to come visit the Nalan clan. Lightly bowing to the impassive Xiaozhan, Nalan also didn't want to stay. She quickly stood up and went towards the door of the main hall. Behind her, Gei Ye and the handsome young man quickly followed her. Take the chi gathering powder. Waving his hand, Xiaozhan threw the jade box on the table at them. Gei Ye quickly caught the falling box and bitterly smiled while placing the box within his ring. Lady Nalan, hopefully you won't regret your actions today. And also don't assume that with faction of Misty Clouds behind you, you can do anything you want. There are a lot of people stronger than Yun Yun. When Nalan Yanren was about to exit the door, a clear girl's cold voice sounded within the hall. The steps of the three paused, and they glanced toward the corner where the voice came from, finding a purple-dressed girl slowly flipping a book. The sunlight shined through the window next to her and perfectly wrapped around the girl. From afar, she looked like a heavenly purple lotus blooming, clean and graceful, as if she was from the heavens. As if she felt the glances from the three, the girl picked her head up from the old book, and within the autumn-like eyes of hers, a thin line of golden flame peeked out. Looking at the thin flame within the girl's eyes, Gei Ye immediately stiffened, and a fearful expression crossed his wizened face. His shriveled hands immediately grabbed the confused Nalan Yanren and young man, and he fled from the main hall as if he was fearing for his life. Looking at the actions of Gei Ye, except for a few people, the others all had expressions of confusion. That wraps up the content for today's episode. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel to get notifications for the next episode. For now, goodbye, and see you next time.